The purpose and scope of Common Criteria 3, CC3, focus on the human element of security, how people, processes, and culture collectively sustain the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of systems. While CC1 and CC2 establish governance and risk analysis, CC3 ensures that workforce actions align with those principles through the entire employment lifecycle: hiring, training, role transitions, and offboarding. These requirements apply equally to employees, contractors, and temporary staff, recognizing that every individual with access to systems or data plays a role in assurance. The objective is not only to prevent insider threats, but to build a disciplined workforce capable of executing controls reliably, ethically, and consistently across all organizational tiers. Pre-employment screening serves as the first control gate to ensure the right people are entrusted with access. Depending on jurisdiction and role sensitivity, background checks may include identity verification, education or credential validation, and employment history review. For higher risk or privileged positions, such as administrators or financial staff, additional checks may assess credit history or regulatory eligibility where permitted by law. The depth of screening should always be proportionate to the role's potential impact. Results must be documented, adjudicated fairly, and stored securely, maintaining evidence of both compliance and ethical treatment of candidates. Screening is not about suspicion, but about confirming suitability and integrity before trust is extended. Once a candidate is cleared, employment agreements and acknowledgments formalize mutual understanding of obligations. These documents include confidentiality clauses, intellectual property terms, acceptable use policies, and clear jurisdictional conditions. Employees must acknowledge the organization's code of conduct and security policies as part of their onboarding. Version control and retention of these signed records provide auditors with proof that obligations were communicated and accepted. Including dispute resolution mechanisms and lawful monitoring notices demonstrates compliance with regional labor and privacy laws. These agreements turn ethical expectations into contractual accountability, bridging governance principles and day-one workforce behavior. Clearly defined roles and competencies ensure that job responsibilities align with control execution. Each position should have a documented description outlining required skills, expected behaviors, and decision authority. Roles tied to sensitive duties, like system administration or incident response, should include minimum certification or training prerequisites. Competence frameworks map skills to organizational risks, ensuring that those handling critical operations possess both technical knowledge and situational awareness. Regular reviews validate that roles remain relevant as technologies evolve. This link between role design and control responsibility reinforces the organization's capacity to manage assurance at scale. Integrating the onboarding workflow with security and compliance systems ensures readiness before access is granted. Access provisioning must be conditional on completion of background checks, signed acknowledgments, and initial training. Asset assignment, such as laptops or credentials, should be logged, and identity creation must occur only through approved systems, not ad hoc requests. Training deadlines and access activation schedules should be synchronized through automation where possible, minimizing human error. A well-designed onboarding workflow reflects operational discipline. Security is not an afterthought added to hiring, but a default embedded within it. Every newcomer requires security and privacy training as part of initial orientation. The content should introduce foundational topics like phishing awareness, social engineering defense, data classification, and secure handling of confidential information. It must also explain how to report incidents, use confidential hotlines, and follow escalation procedures. Completion should be tracked, with refresher frequency defined by policy, often annually or when significant updates occur. New employees must leave orientation with a clear understanding of their role in protecting both company and customer data. Foundational training sets the behavioral tone for all subsequent control compliance. Role-based training deepens this foundation for personnel with specialized responsibilities. System administrators, developers, and support engineers face distinct risks that require tailored instruction. Training for privileged users emphasizes accountability. Every elevated action should be authorized, logged, and reviewable. Developers learn secure coding practices, change control expectations, and data handling requirements. Those managing customer or personal data should receive privacy by design training, understanding consent, retention, and lawful processing principles. These focused programs transform security from an abstract policy into practical, job-relevant behavior that directly supports SOC 2 control objectives. Acceptable use and workstation security policies establish daily behavioral norms. Employees must understand how to maintain device hygiene, patching, encryption, and secure storage. Network access rules should define permitted connection types, especially for remote work. Data backup expectations ensure critical information isn't lost through negligence. And prohibitions, such as installing unauthorized software or connecting unapproved devices, set boundaries for safe operation. Acceptable use acknowledgment forms provide legal and procedural evidence of awareness. Transparent communication about monitoring ensures fairness and legal compliance, reinforcing the balance between oversight and trust. Organizations must apply equivalent rigor to contractors and vendor personnel, who often access the same systems as employees but under different contractual terms. Each contractor should have an internal sponsor responsible for ensuring that onboarding, training, and deprovisioning steps mirror employee standards. Contracts should include confidentiality, acceptable use, and compliance clauses consistent with internal policy. Access should be time-limited, expiring automatically at contract end unless renewed through review. Proof of training and identity verification should be retained, demonstrating parity in control enforcement. Treating contractors as full participants in the control environment ensures assurance integrity across the extended workforce. The modern reality of remote and distributed work adds complexity to the HR lifecycle. Identity proofing, often through verified document submission or secure digital validation, is critical when hiring remotely. Issued devices must be pre-configured with endpoint protection and enrolled in mobile device management (MDM) systems before use. Employees should receive clear guidance on maintaining a safe workspace, avoiding shared devices, and handling sensitive data while traveling. Monitoring practices must comply with local privacy laws, balancing oversight with worker rights. Strong remote-first governance demonstrates that control effectiveness is not location-dependent. Discipline and protection travel with the employee, not just the network. Performance and disciplinary processes provide the accountability that maintains control, consistency. Policy violations, whether negligence or misconduct, must be investigated through documented procedures ensuring fairness and proportionality. Outcomes may range from coaching to termination, depending on severity and intent. Consistency prevents perceptions of bias, and written appeal paths demonstrate due process. Lessons from disciplinary cases should feed back into training or policy updates to address systemic root causes. By handling discipline transparently yet respectfully, organizations show that governance is not punitive but protective, upholding integrity for both individuals and the system as a whole. Periodic background rechecks and eligibility reviews sustain confidence over time. High-risk or regulated roles, such as financial officers or data center operators, may require re-verification at defined intervals. Transfers to more sensitive duties should trigger updated screenings appropriate to the new access level. Legal alerts, sanctions lists, or compliance notifications may also necessitate review. All results and decisions must be recorded securely and handled with discretion to maintain privacy. These cyclical checks prove that trust is not assumed indefinitely. It is renewed through continual validation aligned with organizational and regulatory expectations. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. A mature workforce security program depends on seamless joiner-mover-lever (JML) synchronization between human resources (HR) systems and identity and access management (IAM) platforms. Automated triggers ensure that new hires gain timely access, role changes prompt privilege adjustments, and terminations result in immediate deprovisioning. For movers, the system should adjust access to reflect the new role's duties, neither excessive nor deficient. For leavers, accounts should be locked or deleted within strict service-level agreements, and reconciliation checks confirm no lingering credentials or entitlements remain. Regular audits of JML workflows prove that the organization maintains precise control over who can access its environment, when, and why, an essential foundation for both security and compliance. Privileged access stewardship builds upon this automation, focusing on accounts that can modify systems, data, or configurations. Approvals for administrative privileges must follow documented workflows, with just-in-time access favored over standing permissions. Session recording and command logging create traceability for every privileged action. Regular access reviews verify necessity, while revocation events demonstrate responsive control hygiene. Break glass or emergency access, used when normal workflows fail, must be tightly governed, with post-use justification and oversight. Privilege management, when well executed, shows auditors that the organization balances agility and authority without sacrificing accountability. Offboarding and asset recovery close the workforce lifecycle with equal rigor. Every separation should follow a defined checklist covering credentials, devices, documents, and tokens. For remote workers, remote wipe functionality allows secure retrieval of company data when physical collection is impractical. Knowledge transfer sessions ensure that key information does not leave with departing staff, while exit interviews reinforce confidentiality and non-disclosure obligations. Signed exit acknowledgments and confirmation of completed asset recovery provide verifiable evidence. Effective offboarding minimizes residual risk, protecting both operational continuity and the confidentiality of proprietary information. Different separation scenarios require nuanced handling. Voluntary departures usually allow for planned transitions and standard offboarding, while involuntary terminations or contentious cases may necessitate immediate account lockout and system monitoring for unusual activity. In cases involving customer or vendor relationships, communication protocols must ensure continuity and reassurance without breaching privacy or professionalism. Deprovisioning should occur within a clearly defined SLA, often 24 hours, and evidence of completion stored for audit reference. By tailoring offboarding rigor to context, organizations maintain security without compromising fairness or compliance with employment law. Managing employee data privacy and records ensures compliance with global regulations and internal governance. HR systems must catalog personal data types, identification, payroll, health, or background information, and define retention periods appropriate to each category. The lawful basis for collection, such as consent or contractual necessity, should be documented. Employees must have transparent access to privacy notices, explaining how their data is used and stored. Processes for data access, correction, and deletion requests must be defined and demonstrable. Secure storage, encryption, and role-based access to HR systems limit unnecessary exposure. Protecting workforce data demonstrates that privacy values apply internally as well as externally. Investigations and case management processes bring structure and objectivity to sensitive events. Coordination among HR, legal, and security ensures investigations remain balanced, neither purely disciplinary nor purely technical. When digital evidence is involved, maintaining chain of custody is essential for admissibility and integrity. Confidentiality protects both the accused and the organization's reputation during ongoing inquiries. Once cases are closed, corrective actions and lessons learned should be documented and integrated into policy or training improvements. This feedback loop turns incidents into learning opportunities, strengthening cultural and operational resilience. Balancing oversight with respect for privacy requires monitoring, transparency, and fairness. Employees should know what types of monitoring occur, whether network traffic analysis, device telemetry, or security camera use, and the legitimate purpose behind each. Monitoring must remain proportional, targeting specific control objectives rather than broad surveillance. Regional legal requirements, such as EU labor privacy regulations, must guide implementation. Employees should have access to channels for clarification or appeals if they believe monitoring exceeds stated purposes. Transparency sustains trust, proving that governance safeguards people as much as safeguards systems. Training effectiveness and metrics demonstrate whether awareness programs truly influence behavior. Completion rates and quiz scores provide quantitative indicators, but more meaningful metrics come from observing reduced incidents and improved compliance trends. Correlating phishing simulation results or policy violations with training data highlights where reinforcement is needed. Feedback loops, surveys, Q&A sessions, and internal forums keep materials relevant and engaging. Regular reports to leadership and governance committees close the loop, ensuring awareness remains a visible, measurable contributor to the organization's control environment. Auditors reviewing SOC 2 evidence expect a detailed CC3 evidence set showing how people, process, and technology interact across the HR lifecycle. Key artifacts include training completion logs, signed acknowledgments of policies, and background check records retained within legal limits. Onboarding and offboarding tickets demonstrate process consistency, while access reviews tied to role changes show operational enforcement. Evidence should extend beyond documents to system data, automated workflows, deprovisioning logs, and HR IAM integration reports. Together, these items paint a complete picture that the organization manages workforce risks systematically, from first contact to final separation. Even mature programs face common pitfalls. The most frequent are residual access after role changes or terminations, inconsistent rigor in contractor onboarding, and generic training that lacks role-specific relevance. Another is failure to track completion or verify effectiveness. Remedies include automation, ensuring immediate synchronization between HR and IAM systems, along with service-level agreements defining timelines for every onboarding and offboarding task. Regular audits of access and training data verify adherence. When people processes operate with precision and documentation, human risk becomes measurable and manageable rather than unpredictable. The maturity progression for CC3 follows the same arc as technical controls, from manual, checklist-driven processes to automated, intelligence-supported systems. Early programs rely on spreadsheets and individual vigilance. Over time, integration between HR, IAM, and ticketing systems eliminates latency and errors. Risk-based training replaces uniform content, and analytics identify potential insider threats through behavioral and contextual signals. At full maturity, governance sustains a proactive, data-informed workforce management ecosystem where every joiner, mover, and leaver action reinforces organizational trust. In conclusion, CC3 turns governance principles into daily human practice. It ensures that hiring is careful, training is continuous, and offboarding is complete, closing every loop that could otherwise become a vulnerability. Evidence of automation, tracking, and accountability shows that people-driven processes uphold the same rigor as technical ones. By aligning the workforce lifecycle to security outcomes, CC3 proves that trust is not built solely through firewalls or encryption, but through the disciplined, ethical behavior of every individual. The next step, CC4 Commitments and Requirements, connects these human and operational foundations to the explicit promises made to customers, regulators, and stakeholders, translating governance into measurable performance obligations.